All right, today we are diving into the absolutely chilling case of Edmund Kemper. He was a man whose polite, gentle demeanor hid a truly brutal monster, and whose mind, believe it or not, would become a kind of roadmap for the FBI's entire understanding of serial killers. So let's set the scene. It's May 7th, 1972, on some lonely stretch of California highway. Two college students, Marion Pesse and Anita Lucchesa, are hitchhiking, just trying to get a ride back to campus. And then a car pulls over. The man who gets out is, well, he's a giant. We're talking an imposing 6'9". Now, you'd think they might have been scared, right? But any fear they had just vanished. This guy was so disarmingly gentle and polite, a real smooth talker. He made them feel completely at ease, safe enough to accept the ride. But just a little while later, he takes a very deliberate wrong turn. And as that panic starts to set in, the women make an absolutely horrifying discovery. The inside door handles, they were gone. The polite giant's mask had slipped, and they were trapped with the monster who would become known as the co-ed killer. The story of Edmund Kemper is just this terrifying paradox, right? You've got a genius-level intellect on one hand and just unthinkable violence on the other. And to really understand the monster he became, we have to go back to the beginning. We have to start with the boy he once was. So where did all this rage come from? Well, you can trace the root of it, the source of so much of what happened later, back to a single person, his mother, Clarnell. She was domineering, abusive, and just an incredibly toxic influence. After she divorced his father, Clarnell just unleashed years of psychological torment on young Ed. I mean, just look at this list. Her abuse was relentless. It was deeply personal. She was constantly isolating him, poisoning his self-worth, and she projected all of her own hatred of men directly onto her son. It created this toxic bubble that would go on to shape his entire life. And you can hear it in his own words. Kemper talked about this profound feeling of being completely rejected by the one person who should have loved him. And that feeling, it didn't just go away. It festered into this deep, violent rage that would define the rest of his life. So he gets sent to live with his grandparents, to escape this toxic home life. But the change of scenery, it did pretty much nothing to calm the storm that was brewing inside him. And at just 15 years old, that simmering rage finally boiled over. And this right here really gets to the heart of the paradox of Edmund Kemper. On one hand, you have this brilliant, highly capable mind, and on the other, a chilling darkness just filled with these violent fantasies. It was that duality that made him so incredibly dangerous. His IQ was tested at 145. To put that in perspective for you, that is firmly in the genius category. We're talking the same level of intellect as top scientists and inventors. And of course, that intelligence made him all the more deceptive and all the more dangerous. The breaking point came after an argument. He was just 15. He shot and killed his grandmother. When his grandfather came home, he shot him too. His reason? He didn't want his grandfather to find out what he'd done. When the police asked him why he killed his grandmother, his response was just chillingly simple. He said he just wanted to see what it felt like. So Kemper gets diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and is sent to a maximum security state hospital. But here, his high IQ became his most dangerous weapon. He actually studied the psychiatric tests, he learned all the right answers, and he expertly charmed his doctors. They were so convinced he was rehabilitated that they released him at age 21, right back into the custody of his mother, unleashing him to begin his infamous spree. And as you can see from this timeline, the violence just escalated with terrifying speed. Between 72 and 73, Kemper murdered 6 young women, all of them college students, all of them hitchhikers. And every single one, he would later confess, was a stand-in for his mother. He actually said, "They were a surrogate for my mom, and killing them made me feel like I was killing her over and over again." But even after murdering 6 women, his rage still wasn't satisfied. He started to realize that killing these surrogates, it just wasn't enough. It was time to eliminate the original target of his lifelong hatred. On April 20th, 1973, he finally confronted the source of his rage. He waited for his mother to fall asleep, and then he attacked her. But this wasn't just a murder, it was a brutal, symbolic act. I mean, as you can see here, each step of what he did was a twisted form of revenge, specifically designed to silence the voice that had tormented him for his entire life. This was literally his reasoning for putting her larynx in the garbage disposal. And in a final, just grotesque twist of irony, he even noted that her vocal cords were so tough from years of yelling that the machine couldn't even destroy them. So, with his mother dead, the central mission of his life was over. He then invited her best friend over and murdered her too, almost as an afterthought. And then, nothing. The rage was gone. His purpose, in his mind, felt complete. He drove for hundreds of miles, fully expecting a massive manhunt was underway. But when no news broke, when nobody even realized they were dead, he pulled over to a phone booth and called the police on himself. He felt this emptiness, and he told them, "My source of rage was gone. I didn't need to keep killing anyone." And this is what makes Kemper's legacy so uniquely disturbing. In custody, he was incredibly articulate and cooperative. He provided hours and hours of detailed confessions. His calm, intelligent breakdown of his own twisted psychology gave the FBI a totally unprecedented look inside the mind of a serial killer. He became, in their own words, the textbook case, forming the very foundation of modern criminal profiling. Look, the horrific abuse Edmund Kemper suffered as a child is an undeniable fact, but it forces us to confront an incredibly difficult question. Can any amount of trauma ever explain, let alone justify, the creation of such a monster? It's a question that, when you're faced with his crimes, really has no easy answer.